Divine encounters. The crystal spires of Nethys Prime stretched toward the purple sky like fingers of living light. Each tower pulsed with energy that had powered an empire for over 10,000 years. In the highest spire, the Grand Council of the Kythera convened, as they had for countless centuries. The chamber itself was a marvel of impossible architecture, with walls that seemed to bend reality and floors that reflected not the present, but glimpses of the future. High Archon Zelthus stood at the center of the circular chamber, his form radiating an ethereal blue glow that marked him as the most powerful of his kind. The Kythera were beings of pure energy given semi-physical form, their bodies shifting between solid matter and crackling electricity. Their faces, when they chose to show them, were angular and sharp, with eyes that burned like twin stars. Around the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, billions of beings knelt in worship. The morning prayers had begun, as they did every day, with entire civilizations turning toward Nethys Prime and offering their devotion to the Kythera. The Velthans, with their scaled hides and 4 arms, prostrated themselves in their crystal cities. The insectoid clicked their mandibles in rhythmic chants, while their queens offered tribute. Even the proud Coraxian warriors, feared throughout their sector, bent their knees and lowered their massive heads in submission. This was the natural order that had existed since before recorded history. The Kythera were gods, perfect and eternal. They had given technology to the primitive species they encountered, guided them to prosperity, and in return, these species worshipped them without question. It was a system that had brought peace and stability to the galaxy for millennia. But on this day, something was different. High Archon Zelthus felt the disturbance before the alert systems registered it. A ripple in the cosmic order, a presence that should not exist. He turned his burning gaze toward the chamber's viewing screen as it materialized from thin air. The image showed the outer reaches of Kythera space, where their sensor networks monitored every approaching vessel. There, moving at impossible speeds for its primitive design, was a ship unlike any in their records. It was sleek but functional, with none of the ornate decorations that marked vessels of civilized species. More troubling still, it broadcast no prayers, no requests for permission to enter sacred space. It simply approached. Archon Vextar, youngest of the council members at merely 3,000 years old, leaned forward with curiosity. What manner of vessel is this? The design suggests a new species, but their trajectory is bold beyond reason. The other council members murmured among themselves, their energy forms flickering with agitation. No unknown species had dared approach Kythera space in over 2 millennia. The galaxy knew better. Scan their vessel, Zelthus commanded, his voice resonating with harmonics that could shatter mountains. Determine their origin and capabilities. The results were confusing. The ship showed signs of advanced technology, but not the kind the Kythera recognized. It used principles of physics that were crude yet somehow elegant, solutions that were different from the established methods that had ruled the galaxy for eons. As the human ship, designated as the UES Determination, slowed its approach to Nethys Prime, its commander stood on the bridge studying the magnificent world before them. Commander Sarah Chin was a veteran of humanity's early space exploration, a woman whose calm demeanor hid a mind like a steel trap. She had volunteered for this mission knowing full well it might be humanity's last. "Dr. Webb, what are your readings on their energy signatures?" she asked the man standing beside her. Dr. Marcus Webb pushed his thick glasses up his nose as he studied the flowing data on his screens. He was humanity's foremost expert in exotic physics, a man who had helped develop the breakthrough technologies that made this interstellar journey possible. "Commander, their power output is extraordinary, but there's something strange about the pattern. It's incredibly advanced, yet it feels old, like they've been using the same methods for a very long time." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. They had known this first contact would be challenging. Earth's long-range observations had detected signs of a vast galactic civilization, one apparently dominated by beings of immense power. Humanity had prepared for many scenarios, but they had agreed on one fundamental principle. They would meet these beings as equals, not as supplicants. The communication array crackled to life, and a voice spoke in perfect English, though the words carried an otherworldly resonance that made the ship's hull vibrate. Unknown vessel, you have entered the sacred realm of the Kythera. State your purpose and prepare to receive divine guidance. Sarah stepped forward to the communication console. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Determination. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with your civilization. The silence that followed stretched for several long minutes. On Nethys Prime, the Kythera Council was in heated discussion. No species had ever introduced themselves as equals. No one had ever failed to immediately acknowledge the Kythera as their betters. Finally, Zelthus responded personally. I am High Archon Zelthus, voice of the eternal Kythera. Your species is unknown to us. You will dock at our station and present yourselves for evaluation and education. The way he said education carried implications that made Sarah's jaw tighten, but she kept her voice level. We accept your invitation to dock, High Archon. We look forward to learning about your people, as we hope you will learn about ours. The docking procedures were unlike anything the humans had ever experienced. Their ship was guided not by mechanical systems, but by streams of pure energy that enveloped the hull and drew them into a bay that defied the laws of physics. The bay itself was larger inside than outside, with walls that shifted and flowed like liquid crystal. As the human delegation prepared to disembark, Dr. Webb made final adjustments to the devices they carried. These were humanity's greatest achievements in portable technology, designed to demonstrate their capabilities without appearing threatening. Sarah had insisted on this approach. Show strength, but not aggression. The airlock opened, and the humans stepped into an environment that challenged their understanding of reality. The air itself glowed with soft phosphorescence, and the deck beneath their feet felt solid yet somehow alive. Waiting for them was a delegation of Kythera, their forms shifting between states of matter as they moved. Zelthus stood at their head, his presence commanding and terrible. The other species in the docking bay, clearly servants or slaves, immediately fell to their knees at his approach. Some were the scaled Velthans the humans had read about. Others were creatures they didn't recognize. All showed the same instinctive fear and worship. Welcome, children of Earth, Zelthus said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed designed to inspire awe and submission. You stand before the Kythera, the eternal guardians of this galaxy. It is customary for new species to show proper reverence. The humans remained standing. Sarah stepped forward, her military bearing evident in every line of her posture. High Archon, we are honored to meet you. We come as representatives of humanity, seeking to understand your civilization and to share knowledge. The temperature in the bay seemed to drop several degrees. The kneeling aliens looked up in horror at the humans' failure to prostrate themselves. Even some of the Kythera seemed taken aback. Vextar watched with fascination rather than anger. These beings were different, and difference had always intrigued him in ways that concerned his elders. You do not kneel, Zelthus observed, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. We mean no disrespect, Sarah replied calmly. But humans meet as equals. We offer friendship and cooperation, not worship. The word equals sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. Zelthus's form flared brighter, energy crackling around him like controlled lightning. Equals. Child, your species has barely left its birth world. We were old when your son was young. We have guided 1,000 civilizations to prosperity. We are gods in truth, not merely in name. Dr. Webb stepped forward, adjusting his glasses nervously but speaking with conviction. With respect, High Archon, we've learned that the universe is vast and full of wonders. Perhaps we can learn from each other. Zelthus gestured, and the air around the humans shimmered. Suddenly, they found themselves surrounded by holographic displays showing the wonders of Kythera technology. Planets moved in their orbits at the Kythera's command. Stars themselves bent to their will. Entire star systems had been reshaped according to their design. "Behold the power of the Kythera," Zelthus declared. "We control forces beyond your comprehension. Your primitive technology is nothing before our might." But instead of being intimidated, Dr. Webb studied the displays with scientific fascination. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Your mastery of large-scale energy manipulation is extraordinary. But tell me, how do you handle quantum uncertainty at the subatomic level with such massive force applications?" The question caught Zelthus off guard. No species had ever responded to their displays of power with technical curiosity before. They bowed in awe or fled in terror, but they never asked about the underlying principles. "Your question is irrelevant," Zelthus said after a pause. "Mortals need not understand the methods of gods." Sarah and Webb exchanged glances. Dr. Webb reached into his equipment pack and withdrew a device no larger than his palm. "Perhaps we might share something of our own achievements," he said politely. The device hummed to life, and suddenly the impossible architecture of the docking bay made sense to the humans. Webb had activated humanity's first successful reality anchor, a device that created a localized field of stable spacetime. Within its range, the humans could see the true structure of the bay. It was magnificent, but it was technology, not magic. More importantly, the Kythera could see that the humans were no longer awed by their environmental manipulations. The psychological impact of their overwhelming displays was being neutralized by human engineering. Vextar moved closer, his energy form pulsing with excitement. "What is this device? How does it function?" Before Zelthus could silence him, Dr. Webb was explaining the principles of quantum field stabilization, speaking with the enthusiasm of a scientist sharing a breakthrough with a colleague. Vextar listened with rapt attention, asking technical questions that demonstrated a deep understanding of physics. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. The Kythera had perfected the process over millennia, overwhelmed the newcomers with displays of power, accept their worship, guide them into the galactic order as another servitor species. But these humans refused to be overwhelmed. They studied instead of cowering, questioned instead of worshipping. Zelthus called an end to the initial meeting, declaring that the humans would be given quarters while the Kythera decided their fate. But as the human delegation was escorted away, Vextar lingered, his mind racing with new possibilities. For the first time in 3,000 years of existence, he had met beings who looked at Kythera power and asked, "How?" instead of "Please, mercy." These humans carried themselves like the Kythera did, as beings convinced of their own worth and dignity. As the council reconvened that night, Zelthus was troubled. The humans' presence had already begun to change things. Some of the servant species in the docking bay had watched the encounter with new expressions on their faces, expressions that looked disturbingly like hope. The natural order that had maintained galactic stability for 10,000 years was facing its first real challenge. And somehow, Zelthus suspected, this was only the beginning. The balance shifts. The Great Assembly Hall of Nethys Prime had not hosted a gathering of this magnitude in over 5,000 years. Representatives from dozens of species had been summoned to witness what the Kythera proclaimed would be the final demonstration of their divine authority. The vast chamber could hold millions, its crystalline walls reflecting and amplifying the energy signatures of every being present. Commander Chen stood with her delegation in the center of the hall, their small group dwarfed by the sea of alien faces surrounding them. But Sarah had learned long ago that presence was not measured in numbers. Dr. Webb fidgeted with his equipment beside her, making final calibrations to devices that would either vindicate humanity's approach or seal their fate. High Archon Zelthus materialized on the raised dais, his form more brilliant than ever before. Around him, the other Kythera Council members took their positions, their combined energy output making the very air crackle with power. The assembled species immediately fell silent, many prostrating themselves before their gods. "We gather today," Zelthus announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall, to demonstrate why the Kithera have guided this galaxy since time immemorial. These newcomers from Earth have challenged our authority. They refuse to acknowledge our divinity. Today, we will show them, and all of you, why such defiance is futile. A murmur ran through the crowd. The Velthans clicked their mandibles nervously, while the insectoid Grez buzzed with agitation. The idea of challenging the Kithera was almost incomprehensible to species that had worshipped them for millennia. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and calm in the sudden silence. High Archon, we didn't come here to challenge your authority over these species. We came to offer an alternative relationship, one based on mutual respect and cooperation rather than worship and submission. Zelthus's laughter was like the sound of shattering crystal. Cooperation. With primitives who have barely learned to harness nuclear fusion, you speak of things you cannot understand. Then let us demonstrate our understanding. Dr. Webb interjected, surprising himself with his boldness. You've shown us your mastery of large-scale energy manipulation. We'd like to show you our approach to problem-solving. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembly. No species had ever proposed to demonstrate anything to the Kithera. But Vextar, watching from the council dais, found himself leaning forward with interest. Zelthus considered the request, his burning eyes studying the small human delegation. Finally, he gestured grandly. Very well. Show us your problem-solving. Then you will witness power that shaped the cosmos itself. Dr. Webb activated the first device, and the hall filled with a soft humming sound. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing complex mathematical equations and three-dimensional models of atomic structures. But these weren't static displays like the Kithera used. These were interactive, responsive models that changed and adapted as Webb manipulated them. The challenge with large-scale energy manipulation. Webb began, addressing not just the Kithera, but the entire assembly, is maintaining precision while scaling up power. The Kithera have solved this through brute force methods, overwhelming uncertainty with sheer energy output. Several species in the audience stirred. They had never heard anyone analyze Kithera methods before, let alone suggest there might be alternative approaches. Webb continued, but there's another way. Instead of overpowering quantum uncertainty, you can work with it. Use it as a tool rather than fighting it. He activated another device, and suddenly the space around the human delegation began to shift. But unlike the Kithera's reality-bending displays, this was subtle, elegant. Matter danced at the subatomic level, rearranging itself into new configurations. Webb was literally rebuilding the atomic structure of the air around them, creating complex molecules that shouldn't have been able to exist in stable form. The Kithera Council members exchanged glances. This was not brute force manipulation. This was something they had never seen before, technology that worked with the fundamental forces of nature rather than overwhelming them. Impossible, one of the elder Kithera whispered. The energy requirements alone should be massive. Webb agreed. If you try to force the universe to obey you, but if you ask it to dance with you instead, the energy requirements drop exponentially. Vextar could no longer contain himself. He descended from the dais, his energy form shifting rapidly between states as excitement overcame his usual control. Show me the calculations, he demanded. How do you maintain coherence without massive field generators? Before the other Kithera could object, Webb was sharing his data streams, showing the mathematical principles behind humanity's adaptive technology. Vextar absorbed the information with startling speed, his ancient mind racing to understand concepts that challenged everything he thought he knew about physics. Zelthus's voice cut through the growing excitement like a blade. Enough. You show us parlor tricks and claim wisdom. Behold true power. The High Archon raised his arms, and energy erupted from his form. The very fabric of space around the dais began to warp and twist. He was demonstrating matter creation on a massive scale, pulling energy from the quantum vacuum and converting it directly into solid matter. It was a display of power that had once made entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. But instead of falling to their knees in awe, the humans watched with scientific fascination. Dr. Webb was taking readings, muttering calculations under his breath. Commander Chen observed the demonstration with the cool assessment of a military strategist evaluating an opponent's capabilities. "Magnificent," Sarah said when the display ended. "The raw power output is extraordinary. But tell me, High Archon, what happens when you need precision instead of overwhelming force?" To demonstrate her point, she nodded to Webb, who activated humanity's most sophisticated device. It was their prototype universal fabricator, a machine that could manipulate matter at the atomic level with perfect precision. In the space of seconds, it constructed a perfect replica of a Kythera energy crystal, complete down to the quantum level. The assembled aliens gasped. The Kythera crystals were considered sacred, impossible to replicate by any known technology. Yet the humans had done it effortlessly, without any of the massive energy expenditures that Kythera methods required. Worse still, their replica was actually more stable than the original. It hummed with contained energy, but showed none of the quantum fluctuations that plagued even the most sophisticated Kythera crystals. "How?" Vextar breathed, abandoning all pretense of dignity as he studied the fabricated crystal. "Cooperation," Sarah answered simply. Dr. Webb's team spent years learning to work with quantum mechanics instead of trying to dominate them. "We don't force atoms into configurations they don't want to hold. We find the configurations they prefer and guide them there." The philosophical implications of her words rippled through the assembly. Representatives of dozens of species began to murmur among themselves. If the humans could replicate Kythera technology with greater efficiency and precision, what did that say about the supposed divinity of their rulers? Zelthis realized the danger too late. The demonstration was not just about technology, it was about approach. The Kythera ruled through overwhelming displays of power, maintaining their authority by convincing other species that their abilities were beyond comprehension. But the humans had just demonstrated that there were alternative methods, potentially superior methods, that didn't require worship or submission. "Blasphemy!" Zelthis roared, his form flaring with dangerous energy. "You dare compare your crude manipulations to the eternal wisdom of the Kythera?" But his anger only served to highlight the contrast. Where the Kythera response was emotional, the human approach remained analytical. Dr. Webb continued to take readings even as Zelthis raged, treating the High Archon's display as another data point, rather than a divine manifestation. It was Vextar who broke the deadlock. The young Kythera stepped between Zelthis and the humans, his energy form pulsing with a new kind of excitement. "Wait," he said, his voice carrying harmonics of wonder rather than authority. "Don't you see what they're offering? Not submission, not challenge to our rule, but partnership. They've found methods we never considered because we never needed to consider them. We had power, so we used power. They had to find better ways." The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. A Kythera was suggesting that another species might have something to teach them. Ambassador Kryn of the Velthan delegation rose slowly from his kneeling position, his forearms trembling with the audacity of what he was about to do. "Honored ones," he said, his scaled hide reflecting the uncertain energy patterns in the hall, "if these humans can replicate your sacred crystals, might they also teach us to do the same?" The question hung in the air like a physical presence. For the first time in recorded history, a servitor species was asking for knowledge rather than guidance. Sarah recognized the pivotal moment and chose her words carefully. "We would be honored to share what we've learned," she said, "not to replace your relationship with the Kythera, but to add to it. Imagine what your civilizations could achieve if you combined their wisdom with our methods." Zelthis saw his authority crumbling before his eyes. Species that had worshipped the Kythera for millennia were beginning to look at the humans with expressions he had never seen directed at anyone but his own kind. Hope for a different future. "You would destroy the order that has kept this galaxy at peace for 10,000 years, he accused. "We would evolve it," Sarah replied calmly. "Peace maintained through fear is fragile. Peace maintained through mutual benefit and respect endures." Vextar moved to stand beside the humans, his decision sending ripples of shock through the Kythera Council. Perhaps, he said, his ancient voice carrying new harmonics of possibility, it is time we learned something new. The transformation that followed was not immediate, nor was it without conflict. Some of the Kythera, led by Zelthus, withdrew to distant worlds, maintaining their old ways among species still willing to worship them. But others, inspired by Vextar's example, began to work alongside the humans and the growing alliance of species eager to learn new approaches to old problems. The galaxy did not descend into chaos as Zelthus had predicted. Instead, it experienced something it had not known for millennia: innovation. Species that had stagnated under the Kythera's protective guidance began to develop new technologies, new forms of art, new ways of understanding the universe. The humans found themselves not as conquerors or replacements for the old gods, but as teachers and students in a cosmic classroom, where everyone had something to learn and something to offer. Dr. Webb established research stations where human adaptive technology merged with Kythera energy mastery and Velthan biological engineering, creating wonders that none of them could have achieved alone. Commander Chen became the first human ambassador to the Galactic Cooperative, the new organization that gradually replaced the old empire of worship and submission. Her first official act was to establish the principle of equivalent dignity. All sapient species would be treated as equals in their ability to contribute to the common good. The age of gods was ending, but the age of cooperation was just beginning. And in laboratories and meeting halls across the galaxy, beings who had once knelt in worship now stood together as partners in the greatest adventure of all, the shared quest to understand and improve the universe they all called home. The Kythera, who remained active in galactic affairs, discovered something they had never expected. Being respected as colleagues was far more fulfilling than being feared as gods. And the species who had once worshipped them learned that they had always possessed the potential for greatness. They had simply needed someone to believe in them enough to show them how to believe in themselves. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their courage, but their fundamental belief that every intelligent species deserved the chance to stand tall and reach for the stars.